Jai Hind everyone. As part of our lecture series, today is one of the most important lectures, and that too on a subject which concerns the domains allocated to Center for Joint Warfare Studies. Not only that, this subject draws the attention of the stakeholders, the entire decision makers in the country. And this is a domain now it has reached an irreversible direction that whatever the pace may be, little less or more, but it is an inescapable need of India to empower itself, to take care of its national interest and take care of its people. And that is Atmanirbharta. Though the Atmanirbharta is required in all domains and not only limited to the defense, but national defense comes on top of all the national concerns, and therefore Atmanirbharta in defense manufacturing is one of the most important things which needs to be deliberated. Government has started multiple actions in this particular field. However, the progress is not as much as it should have been. And you are well aware that we are running against time. We have to move very, very fast because our large quantum of equipments, whether they be from Army, Navy, Air Force, are still export. Their sustenance is also a challenge. Technology transfer, though it may look attractive, but that has got its own manifestations. And the requirement of these resources, wherever they are, from where they could have been supplied to us, whether from the Russian companies or from the Western end, all of them are engulfed in their own conflict, are not able to manage their own requirement. And therefore, it's time for India to shake up itself, go out of the way, out of box, take care of its need of Atmanirbharta in defense manufacturing. To talk on this subject today, we have General AK Channan with us. We couldn't have found a more competent professional to handle this subject. He is the one who not only raised Army Design Bureau, but took it to an unprecedented level and changed the entire narrative of the defense manufacturing in the country. More about him, we will hear from Arijita before we hear the views of General Channan today on this important subject.
Thank you, sir. I would like to take the opportunity to introduce our speaker. Major General AK Channan is an artillery officer who has led the Army's Make in India initiative over the past few years, an alumni of the National Defence Academy, Kharagwasla, and the National Defence College, Delhi. The officer has graduated from the Defence Services Staff College, Wellington, and the higher command at the Army War College. During the last 8 years, the general officer was posted at IHQ of MOD Army, Delhi, and involved with the process of indigenous capability development. He held numerous appointments in this field, which include the Brigadier PP GSQR, Brigadier WEB, Brigadier WE1, Brigadier PNM, and the ADG WP and ADG ADP. He conceived, operationalized, and was the first chairman of the Army Design Bureau, which was a single point engagement agency for the academia, industry, startups, and the foreign engagement for technology. He initiated the Make 2 process in the Indian Army, which has now 50 running schemes at more than rupees 40,000 crores, exclusively open to the Indian defense industry. He has been the chief executive of the Army Technology Board, the Army lead in the Technology Development Fund, and was a member of the MOD DDP Export Promotion Cell. He represented the Indian Army in various committees like the Dhirendra Singh Committee for Make in India Defense, Pritam Singh Study to overhaul the acquisition system, formulation team for DPP 2016 and DPP 2020. The general officer was part of the team which created the IDEX platform, drafted the path-breaking Make 2 procedure, was the mentor for scouting and proliferation, all in-house innovation in the Indian Army. General Channan was awarded Param Vishish Seva Medal on 26 January 2020.
Well, good morning to all of you, those who are present here and those who are online. I've been given 45 minutes to basically explain a subject which is attaining Atmanirbharta in defense manufacturing. I will essentially try and just skim over the surface at this stage, because each and every slide is a lecture or a complete chapter by itself. And okay, next. So I will probably just have 5 very quick sections, as I said. The first one is I will just explain in a gist what is Make in India. And in the second, I will just come across to say that what is the difference between Make in India, which was given to us in 2014, and Atmanirbhar Bharat, which was given to us in 2019. There is a difference because both the words sound different. Then I will talk a little bit about the processes, etc. Again, this is not a procurement kind of a class. It is just to make you understand and help uncomplicate what otherwise appears very complicated. And people who are practitioners of this actually tend to, get immersed into the system itself, and therefore they are driving para by para and interpreting, the fine print. Whereas actually we need to have more people who have this capability of abstracting themselves out and looking at it from a distance, because you need to capture the spirit and really not go with the fine print. That's the way forward. And finally, just a couple of parting shots. Okay. So let me start with Make in India, and let me just, I'm sure we all speak Make in India so many times. These days, even if you go to buy, something like a normal consumable in the house, whether it is some detergent or some cooking utensil, they will put Make in India there. But what is this Make in India? What was the old Make in India? Make in India is actually a complete concept paper that has been written out and put out by the government of India. It has objectives. It has a complete character of its own. So the entire Make in India, and you can read this, and this is available on the net also, was essentially targeting at increasing the manufacture within this country at a rate of almost 12 to 14%, because manufacture, the moment you increase manufacture and you set up one unit, down the chain you provide almost 8 jobs. So it was something that was to kick start, or rather to give impetus to the manufacturing thing. Second thing was, once you do that kind of impetus, the second thing is that you need skilled people to do things. Because when you want somebody to get onto machines, somebody to make a missile, somebody to do these special constructions that are happening, buildings are coming up, my one technology, whatever. When you want to go into all those things, then you need skilled people. Then you just can't pick up a labor from somewhere and make him do it. So the second thing is that you need to actually target skill sets. You need to develop skill sets and create jobs. So the moment you develop skill sets, part of that will get absorbed into the jobs that get created with this boost in manufacturing. And the second thing is, India is one of the largest, exporters of skilled manpower. So the moment you skill it, you are able to actually reach out to other places where such requirement is. So skilling was one major. The third was that as long as you only keep manufacturing and skill people towards manufacturing, you will be, what I use the word, industrial slaves. Because somebody will tell you, okay, this is it, please manufacture it and give it to me. So, we got independent in 1947, but industrially we continue to, remain. They will give us a particular blueprint and you just keep manufacturing along with it. So you need to concentrate on technologies build your own technologies or use existing technologies, put them together, create innovation. And the last part is when you're doing all of this, you also look back. The legacy of the industrialized world is that it has terribly, terribly, terribly altered the environmental ecosystems. So all this growth, all this must happen, keeping the sustainability and regard to environment. So we should not actually land up in situations where we move along a path and then there is some kind of a capping on the growth because of other reasons. We are contributing to a global climate, or we are using energy which is not, or we are using products or processes which are not good for the environment, and therefore there are pressures coming from the other side. So all that has to be. So this paper actually tells all of this in a very, very comprehensive manner. And I suggest this is one paper. Everybody speaks Make in India, but I don't think very many people have read this. Now, this particular thing has divides the entire Make in India into 4 separate clusters. So there is a cluster of items which are of strategic importance. Those you require for strategic autonomy. That will give you independence. There will be interdependence, but it will give you independence of thought, action, and therefore you actually raise your stature in the world. So these sectors are defense, you should be self-sufficient in defense, aerospace, shipbuilding, capital goods, engineering, etc. This is where you need leadership. So Make in India, the more you do it, the more infrastructure you will create, etc. The second sector is basic inputs. Basic inputs now form critical element of the entire supply chain. You have to have basic inputs. Only then can you actually go ahead and create everything else. So there are some sectors that I've listed down. Total, there are 25 sectors. I've listed a few of them. Some obviously for lack of space I'm not. But the important ones are here. Then the third cluster was depth and value addition. So there is already something that exists, but we need to now move along it. Since we've traveled some distance from here onwards, with a Make in India, we will start kind of creating our own IPRs, we will start creating our own products based on the head start we already have, and create a lot of depth in that particular sector and add a lot of value. And the fourth was specifically for employment generation. There are a whole lot of things there. Employment generation does not necessarily mean jobs, it could also mean entrepreneurial opportunities. So that is how you, whether it is self-employed or whether it is employed in a particular sector, private or public, or it is by creating cooperatives, etc., you create employment, whichever way. So that one was for employment generation. I just want, because we are largely speaking in the context of defense, I want to just highlight one thing. It's important, but not understood by many. Employment generation as an objective was part of one cluster. Strategic importance cluster has nothing to do with employment generation. These days, you will hear even people who are into the thing speaking, okay, if I will put a factory here and start manufacturing some aircraft parts, so much employment will be generated. That may be incidental, but the objective of the first pillar was always to create strategic autonomy, not to generate employment at all. And defense was never meant for that. Incidentally, if it happens, it's a good thing. Okay. So when this whole thing was laid out, they started talking about how do we go ahead on this Make in India exercise. So they realized that we need to improve the business environment. There were too many licenses, there were too many places that where you had to go and get a signature done. So they realized that the business environment needs to be improved. Secondly, not only the environment needs to be improved, you need to create an architecture where all of this can happen, close at hand, and there is interdependencies and there are efficiencies that come into the system. And the third thing was that all of this required capital. You required money to flow into this. Only then, good things will happen. So if these three were the objectives, I have listed something. For improving the business environment, you require two major chunks, and how further it gets divided. I said each one of these is a chapter by itself. So first is you need to make that ease of doing business. That should actually become very nice. So you would have never heard in earlier part of your careers this word called ease of doing business, but lately, last 5, 7, 8 years, India is so much on the ranking of ease of, it is increasing from 95, it has come to 83, it has come to 65, So ease of doing business, a lot of small agencies have come in place which will actually facilitate. The second is to actually start a deregulation and de-licensing regime. So a lot of things have now been, put out in the automatic space, etc. As far as enabling architecture is concerned, you need conveniences. So firstly, you need to create corridors where everybody, so if I have to build, let us say, a pen, I need somebody who makes that refill. I need somebody who makes that little tip of the pen. I need somebody who makes the spring. Somebody with plastics who makes the rest of the body. If they're all, in one building on different floors, and I'm actually at the basement, I can only collect all of this quickly and get my pens out very fast. If all the springs were made in Coimbatore and all the plastics were made in Noida and all the, inks were made in Calcutta, just imagine the cost that comes into this pen. So the second thing was we need to create corridors. We need to have these connected very well, just in time, all those management techniques come into place, inventories, remote inventory management and stuff. So we needed to smarten up all our, infrastructure. Today, you can't think of living without the net. You're so well connected and a lot of information, banking, trading, everything. So you smartened up the entire infrastructure. Then obviously skill development. So you required now different skill sets to operate in this, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 kind of environment. And of course, things always existed. This phone that I carry, this Apple phone, you'll be surprised. This screen, Apple doesn't make this screen. It comes from anybody? Samsung. So actually, this is a Samsung. Samsung is a technology company. Apple is an innovation company. They make the technologies which go into this, but this gives me the best user experience because this chap has used those technology with better innovation. So we needed people to actually pick these puddles of technology here and there and bundle them into nice, marketable, not only marketable, but leading marketable products. So that is what innovation does. And we wanted to do this. Now to do all of this, so far all of us are together. I hope it's not going beyond. So if I click the next, then you will see a lot of things which you will now come together. Just watch this. So if you wanted, these young businesses and entrepreneurs and everybody to come up and you deregulated and gave them a free hand, you started a movement for Startup India. That's again a proper, well-defined a program in which there are concessions, there is what is a startup, there is a definition, how does it go? You wanted to attract capital, you started programs where said 100% FDI, 75. So you kind of let foreign capital or let any capital come into various sectors. You open up these routes. Then Invest India is an organization that actually owns this line. Invest India is a partly government owned and partly, these bodies, industry bodies owned organization. Their sole job was to make sure that they improve business environment. So it becomes a one-stop. If I want to tomorrow set up a power plant in India, I go to Invest India. They will do everything. They will guide me what is to be done. And I only have to submit all my documents to them. They are the ones who are supposed to kind of then further interact. So it was supposed to be a facilitator and one Skill India movement, there's so much, there's an entire ministry that has come up. And, after that, there is a lot of skilling, has mushroomed all over in various capacities. And to make smarten up this, create these architectures, there was another mission called Digital India. There are many other missions, but I've just put the major ones here. So this is all that I wanted to actually speak about as far as what this whole concept of Make in India was. So does it probably improve upon the perspective that you held till date? Gives a little more? Okay. Next. Now we'll start moving into the defense. It is not that there is no Make in India happening, as I said. Before last 15 years when all this started in a big way, we still had a huge network of ordnance factories. Two of our companies were in the top 100 companies in the world, HAL and Bharat Electronics. All that was there. It is not that this has happened suddenly. VDL existed, etc. All of these ordnance factories, 41 ordnance factories were there. So there was Make in India happening, but as I use that term, we were industrial slaves. What happened is somebody gave us bill to print, gave us a license that we can make 100 bottles. So how to make them, they would tell us what machines on which to make, they would sell to us. We would just merely be the people who press the button. So we were doing, and that was also putting us in the, on the top line, etc. We were in the top 100 companies, but that was not really what we wanted to be. There, after we started with, a lot of initiatives, we organized the entire ordnance factories and made 7 DPSUs out of it. And now, a couple of years down the line, these will become independent. They will have no linkage. They will have to earn their own bread and sustain themselves. Of course, legacy infrastructure and all is there, but beyond a point now, they will have to kind of find their own, methods and means to kind of just exist. Second thing is, there was a DRDO which had 7 clusters, 52 labs, a lot of research was happening. But really speaking, government funded research with no really objective or with a stated objective, but no, incentive on doing it fast or doing it better, etc., was carrying on in the normal way. So, and then there were these existing 9 PSUs, 4 in the shipbuilding side, then the 3 which deal with largely land systems, or actually across Bharat Electronics, BEML, VDL, and 1 HAL, which was basically with airborne platforms. And we had one called Mishra Dhatu Midhani, which was dealing with specialist materials. So these were the 9 PSUs. Now they've become 16 when these get merged. So this all was there. But what change happened is that lot of large players started coming into the system. The problem or the issue with these large players, I put few names. I think these are the only 5 names even today. The trouble is that these large players have other businesses. So although they've come into defense is just 1, 2, 3% of their portfolio, not more. Their larger existence comes from other areas. I would amongst these probably rate Bharat Forge a little more skin in the game, not because of, by volume, they'll all be largely invested the same. But by size, Tata is so big that their neck in the defense is maybe 1%, 1.5%. But for Bharat Forge, it may be a good 15, 20%. So the risk involved into this sector is much more, the exposure is much higher as a net percentage of the total. I think it's a little smaller company compared to the others. The other interesting thing that happened with this Make in India, as I explained, as it unfolded, a lot of smaller mid-sized players and pure defense players started coming into the system. So Zen, Alpha, Dynamitics, WEM Technologies, all these guys started coming into the system in a much bigger way. And a lot of startups started scaling up. They started getting listed and coming into the market. So you can see some of these have come up. They have come up, they have grown purely the defense way. So there are some which are, moving into defense. There are some who largely converted into primary defense companies. And there are some startups which scaled themselves up and created these, which I call the new age. So this is how this is the impact that started happening with Make in India. Now, once these lower ones started coming in, we realized that that point that I spoke about, depth and value addition, then we must concentrate towards that. So now I will talk about how did we move to Atmanirbhar. I will just quickly first, before I reach that end, I just want to cover a couple of issues. When you go to some professional who's dealing or somebody in my place who will come here and talk about, acquisitions and this, you get the DGCD or some deputy chief or somebody. We talk, it's very complicated. Actually, there are only 2 things that happen in this world. It is so simple. I'm just making it simple for you guys. If you need something, and I will ask this question to any one of you, if today you want to, eat, let us say, a sandwich, what do? There are only 2 choices. Either you go into the kitchen and make it, or you go on the Swiggy and buy it. So in life, there are only 2 things that you can do. Either you make it or buy it. Simple, even at the highest level, it is the same. Now starts the little bit of, addition. So when you buy it, you either buy it from an Indian vendor, because it's not a sandwich, it is something, maybe it's a missile. So you either buy it from an Indian vendor or you buy it from a foreign vendor. So if you buy it from an Indian vendor, you call it Buy Indian. If you buy it from a foreign vendor, you call it Buy Global. Understood? When you buy from an Indian vendor, what are the advantages that the government gets? Firstly, you pay in rupees. Secondly, a higher indigenous content can be insisted upon. And thirdly, all the manufacturing, because he is doing it here in India, so the advantages as far as manufacturing, jobs, skill sets, certain chunks of technology, etc., will be available. If you buy it from a global chap, then the government gets exposed to exchange rate variations. If today I sign a contract, dollar is 60 rupees, and I sign a contract for $1,000, tomorrow while I'm paying, if it becomes 82, the risk is mine. So currency exposure is there. Then he will give a lot of restrictions. You can only use it in this. You can use it against Pakistan, but not against China. You can't sell it to another country. You cannot do this. So there will be restrictions on it. He will only give you part he will keep with himself, etc. And since it's a one order, it will have a finite lifespan. It will have a finite, business model involved in it. So after some time, it will become very sustainability will become an issue. For example, if you bought these helicopters, the Pumas and the Llamas, etc., you bought them so many years back. Now there is a problem because they have gone out of service across the world. Okay, rotor blades are not available, etc. So, and now if you want to actually build, or you want somebody to build it for you, it costs many more time. In fact, today a set of rotor blades costs more than what you paid for the entire helicopter at one time. So those are the kind of, those sustainabilities will suffer in the long run. But yes, sometimes you have to buy from global brands. So buy में दो हो गया. Now there may be a hybrid solution. Look, I will buy a few and balance. I will learn how to make them. Like the Maruti model. The first few Marutis came from Japan. Then the kits came. Then you started setting up your own factories. The more the orders started flowing into the system, the more things you started doing in India. And now, obviously, you have nothing to do. Now, you don't even write Maruti Suzuki. You just write Maruti, because it's now, you are now making your own stuff as well. So when you do this kind of a thing, if the lead is with the Indian company, I'm buying from a foreign company, but the lead is with the Indian company. You call it buy and make Indian. If you are buying it from a foreign company, the contract is with a foreign company, but part of the contract says that after 50 pieces, rest you will make in India. Then he chooses his partner, he does what he wants to. Then it is called buy and make global, but hum buy and make ही बोलते हैं. Means the same. So have we understood this? Is it complicated? Okay. The second thing is make. Like I said, you make a sandwich. So in defense, when you have to do the make, when you have to do the make, they have three things. They call it make one, make two, make three. Simply. Make one is when the costs are very high. For example, you have to make a tank. You have to make an aircraft. Now, which business will take the risk of making a tank? And then you have to be competitive. Then two people will, fight for the orders, etc. So when you have to do that, then the government has laid down a procedure. Okay, both of you do it, but we will fund you. Large part of your process till the time you make a prototype, we will pay for the prototype. So that is called make one. Normally, this is used when you are making complex, like aircraft, tank, helicopter, something like that. You require a lot of capital. The government has to come and step in with the capital. You require not one, but a whole stack of technologies. Aircraft and all will be, so many technologies will go into that. And you require infrastructure that itself to build a tank, build an aircraft, the kind of land, the sheds, etc. that you require will itself cost some 15,000-20,000 crores to set it all up. So the government then actually steps in and helps you do it. So that is called make one. Make two is small. You, in an aircraft, there is a winch that is required. There is a, ramp that has to be lowered, and so some hydraulics that are required. Something to do with some small subsystem, some part which you want to change. When you do that, you go into a make. In a make two, the government doesn't fund, but they assure that you will get orders. Understood? So what all should go into a make to? So things where there are no cost barriers. Second, industry will get interested if it is dual use. So when you make that particular RAM, it is not only for defense aircraft. The first order may come from defense, but those could be used, for other aircrafts as well, cargo airplanes. You are doing some ground support equipment that can be used in the entire aviation sector. So largely it will be there. Third thing is orders must be assured, and I am not going to do it for one order of 200 pieces. There should be a little bit of a long-term demand visibility. See, this order is for 200, but over the next 10 years, maybe 1,000 will go. Then I will go into this. And relatively inexpensive technology. Inexpensive is a very subjective word here. And then there is a Make 3 that was just basically spare parts localization. So that is actually nothing very much. So I hope this whole DPP first 73 pages I've explained in this one slide in a very simple manner. I hope it kind of sticks. Now, why did I go through this? My original topic in this segment was Atmanirbharta. So what we need to do is, if you see down below that blue and the green block that I made, we need to actually put more of the stuff in the blue block. Understand? Just ignore whatever is on the top, but just concentrate on the bottom. We need to move more toward this. That is when you become Atmanirbhar. So I have just put this, but there is a challenge. If I today put a factory to start building helicopters, then I've never built one. I'm competing with somebody who has already built and sold 2,000 helicopters. So my cost will be very high. You see the black line. And also the first helicopter that I build will have a lot of bloody problems in it. So the time before it matures will also follow a definitive curve. Can you see it? So if you see that curve and you see whatever is on the green side is the advantage, which goes to the green. And really, because it's much higher on the blue side, that is the challenge towards a true make in India. Now, how do we overcome this challenge? The aim is that this cost line must come down. How? And the timeline must come down. You see the blue arrow coming down. How do I push it down? I can only push it down by two means. Firstly, my quality has to be better than what was available, or at least at par, so that there is credibility in the system. And if I get a better quality, then I will actually have a much better traction, not only within India, but abroad. Second is volumes have to be high, because the cost competitiveness will only happen if the volumes are more. Cost gets defrayed over number of shares. So how do we do this? That is where, understand, we have to do three things. We must make sure by design that there is preferential access to Indian companies for Indian market. So that is why Buy Indian, etc. have the highest priority. So anytime you want to do a Buy Global, you have to explain 100 people why it couldn't be done in the blue segment. And they are not very easy to get, sanctioned for this part. So they have given you preferential access. Then they have put embargo. Certain things you can't buy from outside. So how did they put this embargo? Think. Those positive lists or negative lists or whatever you want to call it. Every 6 months, 8 months, they put out one more list. These items can no longer be imported, and that list is growing only. So they are creating embargoes. Third thing they are doing is they are creating ecosystems, defense corridors, incentives, multipliers, etc. All that is happening, tax breaks. And the last thing is they are actually cutting short the process. They are trying to accelerate the process. Now, the process which is in the book, the process which is this process of my giving this pen to him, this process I can accelerate. Where the process is not getting accelerated is in my head and in his head. I can give him the pen, but इसने मुझे pen क्यों दिया? Why? I can't change that. So it's the damn mindset which is killing this, because every functionary is only looking at a very small portion of the picture. He's not looking at the full picture itself. So wherever I go, I actually, plead to people, for God's sake, don't look at that paper which you are handling, look at the larger picture. Every time I went out, when these trials were happening, he would find 20 faults. Whatever. And I would tell those guys, I agree there are faults. I agree there are faults. But why are we doing this trial? We were doing this trial as a part of a procurement scheme because we need to buy this bottle. And we need to buy this bottle because we need this bottle. If you keep finding faults with this bottle and keep rejecting it, you are not going to buy it. And you started this whole exercise to buy it. It's the mindset that has to change. Have you understood my point? The mindset doesn't mean that you have to now ignore all the faults, because industry also is looking at cutting corners and making profits. So you have to make sure of that. But largely, rather than telling, I won't tell you, बेकार है ले जाओ, sit with him, भाई इसको ऐसे की बजाय ऐसे करते हैं. And that is how you have to kind of, and that's how the whole system is. Volumes increasing, obviously. As I said, another thing is exports. Exports add to your volumes. Imports add to the other guy's volumes and make you less competitive. So that is why we are doing two things at the same time. We are putting embargoes as far as other guys' volumes are concerned, and we are giving a lot of impetus to exports, setting targets, which is we are trying to inflate our limits. Yes. And sometimes actually there are systems where this thing really can't be done the way I showed you. So you actually start finding intersection in between, because certain technologies really will take a lot of time coming. The cost will never match up because somebody has had a 20-year head start on you. So there are other ways like strategic partnerships, etc., through which you put them all together. So in this slide, what I've explained to you it's a single slide which has been kind of built up. I've explained to you, the processes of DPP. I've explained to you why exports must happen. I have explained to you why these indigenous lists are being put out. I've explained to you why the strategic partnership comes, the why of it. How is the process? As I said, that's a chapter by itself. Anybody wants to. We can have many more discussions on these things. Okay. So next, I will now quickly finish because the time is running out. We will now talk about, you see that manufacturing decrease? That manufacture was Make in India. When you talk of Atmanirbhar, you see it kind of just widens up on both sides. Atmanirbhar means technology is also yours. Designs, IPRs are also yours. Manufacturing, obviously we were doing before also, but much more and much more meaningful manufacturing. Integration, it's a skill. Okay, so if you are a manufacturer of a good night sight or a good, avionics system, integrating into different aircrafts or integrating into different weapons requires, understanding the ballistics and all. So as a site manufacturer, I only know how to make a good site. There will be somebody who's an integrator who will understand the site and the weapon and be able to match them to the best efficiencies. I am only going to speak of my theory. I'm not going to speak of anything else, only my theory. And my theory goes like this. I personally feel the private sector should concentrate on high-class manufacturing. And the DPSUs should stop. In any case, they get it manufactured from a supply chain. They should let the supply chain management remain with these guys. They should get into integration. And that is how synergies will come. Understand? Very quickly, I will just show you. I will not waste time on this. I will just come here. So as far as technology is concerned, there are various technology readiness levels. I've just given R&D, design and development, prototyping, limited series, mass production. So we have a lot of things which are mapping stuff across all this. There are fundings available. There are Army, Navy, Air Force Technology Board. There is a technology development fund. There are make projects which actually come to, prototyping and limited productions. And of course, there is this entire DPP for direct production. So you can capture product across the entire range of different products. In addition, for innovation, you have innovation exercises within uniform. And for civilians, you throw open these IDEX challenges, etc. Understood? Absolutely. Towards the very end, I just want to speak about two concepts which you need to understand. One is this book. This is a very good book. I strongly recommend people to read this book. This iPhone, which is the largest selling product in the world, this is 22 major technologies that go into this have been funded by the government of the United States. And out of those 22, a good 19 have been funded by the Defense, Department of Defense. And here, there was one particular ATP project in which somebody developed a technology. And a lieutenant colonel was saying, इसने मेरे पैसे से टेक्नोलॉजी बनाई है, ये अब इतने पैसे इसके कमाएगा, मैं इसको जेल भेजूंगा. This is not the way. That fellow never thinks like this, na? He said, तुम कमाओ जितने कमाने, because at the end of the day, this Department of Defense also belongs to US, and every iPhone that sells, the money also goes into US. So it's fine. At the end of the day, you are creating capabilities. That's why I said, सबसे बड़ा challenge ये mindset. People are not understanding the larger picture at all. And so what happens is, they are very good. अपने चीफ के साथ में खड़े हो जाएंगे, फोटो खिंचाएंगे, दिखाएंगे, all that. But we get into this. We fund people, you see the black line? And they make some technology, but that never translates into products because there is a minimum investment that company requires to survive, and 9 out of 10 companies just die. And this is known as the value of death. Okay. So that's it. Design, a lot of initiative has been taken. DRDO is a design house. Then there is all these IPs and all are created. There is a complete setup in DGQA for free listing of IPRs. If you have an IPR, you go to them for free. Otherwise, it costs something like $40,000 to, get IPR. Okay. Manufacture, I said there are a lot of things that people have done, offsets, no royalties, reservation for assemblies, soft loans, 45 days money should be paid. Integration, the guys who finally sell the product, they need money quickly because they have invested in their sub chain, etc. So faster cycles, they get preferential access. There are certain products that are reserved for them. There is foreign direct investment that comes in. All these things we've covered somewhere or the other. Certification is something that we need to concentrate on. This is a chapter that I would like to speak on separately because I think this is a very important facet that we have not really worked on. And I think CENJOWS, because that standardization fellow comes under the ideas, I think this is something we need to work very hard on. I'm just leaving it this. This is a full chapter by itself. Okay, corridors, all the time. That's it. Just see the DDP and all, they are alive. They are every minute exporting, capturing data as to how things are happening. This is a little older screenshot of 28th of March. But if you go, they're very serious about this whole stuff. And lastly, I will not again cover this. This is something that I will leave with the director CENJOWS. He is much better at this part of the game. And all I would say is that, we are growing at almost 4-5%. And we need to kind of make sure that we provide the necessary environment. And our own military will always be the best ambassador for our system. If we are using something, we can convince the world. If we use something and win, it's a winner. Thank you very much.